So everyone is talking about the new M4 MacBook Pros that came out recently, you know, how specs impact user experience, what they can do casually, what they can do creatively, what kind of intensive workflows you can throw at these new machines. But this question has not really been answered yet, and I'm excited to answer it. And that question is, can the M4 MacBook Pro run Minecraft? And does it have enough dedicated RAM for a server?
What's the recommended amount of dedicated RAM I should have to a server?
Or more specifically, shaders, which is exactly what we're going to be running today with 4 different machines here, one surrogate, and I'll explain that in a second here. So I have the base 14-inch MacBook Pro, you know, 1600, a little less if you get it on sale, with the base M4 chip and 16 gigs of RAM. Then I have a surrogate MacBook Pro, which is just the binned M4 Pro Mac Mini with 24 gigs of RAM. That mirrors the $2,000 MacBook Pro that you can get. And then I have a better spec or non-binned M4 Pro MacBook Pro with 24 gigs of RAM as well. And then I have a top spec 16-inch MacBook Pro with the M4 Max chip, the best one, and 48 gigs of RAM. So we're gonna see how the performance ladder sort of performs here. We're gonna see how Minecraft with shaders does on these machines. And I'm doing shaders because, let's just be real, or I'll just inform you, the M4 chip can push Minecraft perfectly well. I mean, you know, on the display natively or 4K with this BenQ monitor that I'm gonna be using here for this test for the sake of, you know, homogeneity or just, you know, a standard fixed variable, so we're not sort of going from display to display, and it's just a mess if you do that. All of this to say shaders really make your Mac sweat, like it actually gets hot when you're running them, because they utilize the CPU and GPU cores quite a bit. So this will give us a good demonstration as to how the performance stacks up or climbs, you know, model to model with the more money you're spending. I wouldn't buy a Mac just to play Minecraft, but it's gonna be interesting to see, you know, if you're going for a more powerful machine, how your Minecraft experience will vary or probably get better. Okay, so first up we have the base MacBook Pro that's going for like $1,400 right now, regular MSRP $1,600 with the base M4 chip, 16 gigs of RAM, and more importantly or specifically, 10 CPU cores, 10 GPU cores, nothing to scoff at either. This is a really great configuration, pretty powerful for what you're paying for here. And I'm running this again on a 4K BenQ display here with display scaling set at 1080p, so Minecraft renders at 4K and not 5K, because when you do the 1440p scaling, it just overscales or it just does too much in Minecraft. You don't really need all that resolution. So we have default here, 1920 by 1080. I wouldn't recommend using your Mac like this, but for Minecraft, it's a better experience in my opinion. So we're running Optifine 1.21.1, and I have a seed called Jolly World that sort of spawns you in a forest with water. So it's gonna give us a good idea as to how you know, a pretty nuanced map or seed is going to perform here. I didn't want to spawn in like a desert or an ocean or whatever here. So here is this seed. It's really gorgeous here, and I can turn on the frames per second here in the corner. So we are getting 17 frames per second here with shaders at 4K here. We can fly across the map here and see the water. For what we're doing here, this is pretty impressive because, you know, even though Minecraft is a pretty basic game, we are doing a lot of advanced graphical stuff with shaders here. I mean, look at how complex the water is. You got reflections going on there and all that. You can turn down the scaling, but it just doesn't look that well or good. And, you know, I really want to kind of give you the experience here. I can also change the time of day, which might help it perform a little better. So I'm gonna do, let's do like 10,000. That's like later in the day. So we're gonna get, I think, better frames here, maybe not. Actually, no. Apparently not. So we're getting a pretty consistent about 15 to 18 frames here, which makes sense. And let me quickly show you my graphic settings here. So we have Quake Pro on, that's how I prefer to play the game. 12 chunks, 8 chunks, situation or simulation distance, unlimited frames, so we see what we're getting. GUI scale is at 4, not that that matters. Fancy, and then of course the shaders are on there, CUDA shaders V6. And then resolution-wise, again, we got just the default mode on, so nothing happening there, anything crazy. So yeah, we are really pushing the M4 chip to its maximum potential here, clearly. I can turn the shaders off, and I'm only gonna do it with the M4 chip because it really doesn't matter ultimately, because all these chips can run regular mode. So I can turn them off, and as you can see, the frames will immediately go up to 143, 134, 100. So like I said earlier, you know, all of these chips here, even with the base RAM configuration, run this game natively really nicely. So if you want to just play it like this, you have nothing to fear. But yeah, shaders definitely make your experience better. And I think you can still manage to do it with the M4 model here. You just have to turn some settings down. But for the sake of this video, I want to keep the settings maximum here. And then I'm going to actually fly over to this hill over here because there is a abandoned nether portal, which is convenient. I was going to build my own, but clearly there was already one ready to go. So I can rebuild it here. We can go to the nether, and then we can wrap up the performance test with the M4 model here. All this to say, considering this is pretty graphically intense, I'm very impressed with how it's performing. So let's go to the nether. No? Oh, try that again. There we go. So let's go to the nether. Okay. So better frames in the nether. Maybe the lighting is just not as advanced. There's just less going on here. It's super dim. It's so dim. Brightness is at default. That's going to be the consistent brightness across the board here. The lava looks super cool, but it's so dark. Let me turn the brightness up and see what that does here. Not much, so yeah, I don't know if this is playable. Oh my God. Maybe I need a different shader pack. I was struggling to find one that was compatible for this review, but I was struggling to find one that was like ready to go. So, I mean, you can tweak it to your liking here, but we get a pretty good idea as to how performance is in the nether here. I can also switch back out just while we're on the M4 base chip, just for the sake of showing you default performance. Again, 160 frames. This is why, again, I'm not even gonna bother doing this on the higher spec models, because you know it's gonna be this, if not better. So if you are running, you know, a 120 hertz or 144 hertz display, or if you're using the native display on the laptop, you're gonna be maxing out the frames here. Actually, I'm getting 75, 60 frames right here. So, you know, all I'll say is you're probably gonna get higher refresh rate frame capability with the higher end models here. But for the most part, you get really great performance, you know, in the, you know, upper 70s, 80s, 90s frames with the base M4 model here. So overall, very impressive here for what you're getting. And I imagine a lot of you are probably gonna have this configuration if you're looking for one of these MacBooks. So rest assured, Minecraft runs perfectly well on this, even with some shaders, especially if you tweak it and sort of turn down the rendering settings and make it a little more tame. Okay, so next up we have our surrogate of sorts MacBook Pro here that is identically spec'd to the binned M4 Pro model that goes for $2,000. This is the M4 Pro Mac Mini with the same binned chip, 12 CPU cores, 16 GPU cores, so 2 additional CPU cores compared to the base M4 and 6 additional GPU cores compared to the base M4. So definitely a performance jump here, plus 24 gigs of RAM. So we're gonna see how this performs here, and I'm going to set the time to noon so we get nice light going on here. So we are getting 24 FPS minimum, 19. So I was doing testing earlier. It seems like we're getting like cinematic frame rate here, which is not bad. I mean, it's definitely playable. I would forgive a frame rate like this with how beautiful the graphics look here, specifically the water. I mean, just like look at it. It's just gorgeous here. So we can fly around a little more. So yeah, 26 frames going up, minimum 22, not bad, definitely playable. And you know what? I said I wasn't gonna do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway here. I'm going to turn the shaders off, and I'm going to show you what default Minecraft looks like here. 184, see, like, we're in crazy frame territory. If you have a high refresh rate display, I mean, you're gonna have no problem pushing it and sort of maintaining frame zero. Although, you know, it's dipping to some lower frames here and there, which I'm sure is normal with any, you know, higher end processor sometimes, but it's similar. It's just going to keep those higher frames high a little more so than the M4 chip here. But let's get back to the shader experience here once again. So again, cinematic frame rate 30 FPS, actually 30. So we're seeing some significant performance gains here, I would say, over the M4. But it makes sense though. An additional 6 GPU cores, you know, 60% more performance is nothing to scoff at. It's not double, which we'll get to in a minute here. But anyway, Let's go over here. So 30 FPS, you know what? Not bad, not bad at all, especially on a 60 hertz display like we have here. So I'm going to go to the Nether real quick, and then we'll wrap up stress testing or performance testing the base M4 Pro model here. Ooh, oh, okay. And we're in the Nether, and yeah, the performance gets a little bit better in the 40s here. So again, while this isn't exactly playable, I haven't really messed with the settings to make it playable. We can see that the shaders are indeed clearly working. The lava looks super cool. The glowstone does too. You know, for whatever reason, the Nether is just an easier place to render this lighting, despite the fact that half of it's pitch black. But all of this to say here, we are seeing, you know, how the more or the increased number of CPU and GPU cores add to performance, probably more so GPU cores in this case, because I think that the 10 minimum CPU cores are doing the trick. With shaders, graphically, that's what's more challenging. So the more GPU cores you have, the better. So yeah, we're seeing, I don't know off the top of my head what the performance increase is, but I would imagine probably 30 to 50% in some cases, which is, you know, worth it if you actually play this game quite a bit, you know. So if you want to have an even better experience and, you know, you're buying a MacBook Pro and you're like, oh, I'm gonna do casual stuff with it. Well, if you're gonna be doing some gaming, you're definitely gonna want a little bit more RAM and GPU cores. So I said earlier, like, don't buy a MacBook Pro just to game or just for Minecraft, but I would say jumping from the base model to the base M4 Pro model is pretty forgivable, pretty normal. Where you get into trouble is if you're buying like a really expensive M4 Max MacBook Pro, or God forbid, like an M4 Ultra Mac when that comes out for gaming. I think you should only be buying those machines if you have a specific workflow, but you know, if you have the workflow and you love Minecraft, you know, it's your lucky day. You get to utilize the performance that you bought for your work or whatever, for something you monetize for Minecraft as well, which is nice. But real quick, before we continue with the video here, I have a brief message from today's video sponsor, Icaro, and their Break X2 portable wireless audio machine. Before they reached out, I had no idea devices like this existed, and let me tell you, it's actually pretty awesome. First up, it's a fantastic speaker with dual 4-inch woofers and 1.2-inch tweeters, which give you very loud, punchy, high-quality sound, great for indoor or outdoor gatherings or listening. They also have this sick LED effect when in use as well, which is a nice touch. The battery life is also super solid, giving you 8 hours of playback, even with the 10.1-inch screen turned on, which, by the way, is its own standalone tablet with a very simple, intuitive interface, which allows you to customize the sound settings and play audio or music locally or off YouTube or Spotify with its internal Wi-Fi 802.11ac connectivity, and also through other devices over at Bluetooth 5.4. The display also swivels 180 degrees and folds for easy access, which is super convenient. Best of all, though, it comes with 2 wireless mics which live and charge in the X2's chassis. So if you need to make an announcement at a party, or you want to partake in some karaoke with your friends and family, all you have to do is pop one or both of them out and they're instantly ready to use. Last up, you have plenty of connectivity with this thing as well if you want to hook it up to your TV via the HDMI port or other audio devices like mics and instruments. Icaro also throws in 6 months of access to their Carafun Karaoke app for free for 6 months with your purchase. Overall, the Break X2 is unlike any speaker I've ever encountered, and I can't wait to put it to use at the next family gathering or party I'm at where great music and a microphone will come in clutch. I'll leave a link in the video description down below if you're interested in checking it out. But anyway, moving on here, hopefully what I'm about to say next I said earlier, but I'm going to reiterate it now just for context and your understanding. Not all M4 chips are created equally. Not all computer chips in general are created equally. Basically, you have your schematics, you send it to the manufacturer, you know, in this case TSMC if you're AMD or NVIDIA or Apple, and then they produce your chips, and some of them turn out perfect and others don't. And this is where the term binned comes to play or comes in place. So you have your best or non-binned versions that turn out perfect. So let's just call those the A+ chips. And then you have the ones that are less than perfect, but still good. So we'll call those the B+ chips. This is how Apple's able to sell you sort of different performance or different chips at different prices, because they don't want to just throw out all of the less than perfect chips. So that's why you have, you know, the binned M4 chip that I just tested a few minutes ago here with 12 CPU cores and 16 GPU cores. And then you have have your non-bin M4 Pro, or the more ideal version, which has 14 CPU cores and 20 GPU cores. So an additional 2 CPU cores and then an additional 4 GPU cores over the bin version. And then when you compare that to the base M4 chip, you get double the GPU cores, so 20 compared to 10, and you have, 14 compared to 10. So 4 more CPU cores, 10 more GPU cores, quite the leap in performance there. And that is what we're seeing with the shaders in Minecraft here, if my mouse will connect here. So we're getting a consistent like 30 frames a second. So we started out with like, in the high teens, then we got the cinematic, in the mid 20s. Now we're in the 30s range, minimum 26, 27, whatever. Pretty consistent, high 20s, early 30s here, which is quite nice. So, this is what you're paying for when you get this more ideal M4 Pro chip. You get 4 more GPU cores that can tackle the graphics that are going on here, the intensive lighting conditions here, the water, all of that. I would imagine at a lesser resolution it would run even better. So if you're running this with your laptop screen, it'll probably run in like the maybe late 30s, early 40s. I think I was testing that out earlier, although again, I want to keep the display resolution constant just so we can see the performance increase more naturally here. But yeah, I mean, this runs pretty well. 30 FPS is not a bad experience, especially on a 60 hertz display. Once again here, again, you could probably get a better experience with a different resolution monitor, maybe a 2K monitor, whatever. But yeah, I mean, this is pretty decent. And again, just keep in mind, this entire test, we've been running Minecraft at 4K, which is not anything to scoff at. It's not 5K like I was doing earlier because I had the scaling weird, or, just more normal. But again, Minecraft just decided to like scale it at 5K, which is just not what you want to do. But yeah, I mean, I'm very impressed with this. I mean, considering just how graphically intense this is, we're getting a pretty consistent, 30-ish frames a second. I'm gonna change the time of day to see if that has an impact at all. So we can do, 10,000. So a little bit higher, still similar. Beautiful, beautiful graphics, by the way. I mean, if I get back into playing Minecraft, I will definitely be playing it with shaders, with the nether looking better, which we can go to right now. So let's go up there and go back to the pitch dark nether. Again, I think you just have to sort of adjust the brightness settings or whatever. So there we go. And we're getting, yeah, so like, in the 40s. Yeah, so this makes sense. Again, the performance increases have been substantial and steady. So yeah, the best or non-binned M4 Pro chip is definitely better than the binned one. Again, because you get an additional 4 GPU cores, not 2, not 1, 4. So yeah, that is quite substantial. Maybe not sort of the difference between the M4 and the M4 Pro that's been, which gives you 6 more GPU cores, and then when comparing this to the M4 chip, again, you get double the GPU performance, which seems to be mathematically adding up here with the frame rate. So yeah, pretty great experience. Again, keep in mind, we're running this at 4K. If you're running this on your laptop's display, it'll run at an even higher frame rate, probably in the 50s, maybe even 60s, all things considered. And again, keep in mind, we're running this at 4K, so if you're running this on your laptop's display, it's gonna run even better here. So again, I'm pretty impressed for what we're getting here, because again, like, this is no joke. I mean, Minecraft by itself is easier to run. Again, I will, I said I wasn't gonna do this, but I'll do it again. We can see what kind of frames we're getting in the nether at the very least, with the M4 Pro non-bin chip. So yeah, 169, 114, 206, ridiculous numbers. Again, like, just nothing you can actually take advantage of unless you have a really high refresh rate monitor or whatever. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, again, we're taking a pretty simple game here and making it a lot more complex, with this very realistic, gorgeous lighting here. We also have 12 chunks of rendering distance as well. We've had that on across the board, so keep that in mind here. You can always adjust that or sort of tweak your settings to sort of optimize your frames. So I am overall really impressed with this chip here and all the chips so far, but I am anxious to see what the M4 Max does. And with that said, let's conclude this test and see how the best M4 Max chip here does with Minecraft and shaders. I have it in the most expensive pre-configured 16-inch MacBook Pro you can buy from Apple that goes for $4,000. This comes with, again, the best M4 Max chip with 16 CPU cores and 40 GPU cores. So comparing this to the previous chips, we get double the GPU performance compared to the best M4 Pro chip, and more than double with the binned M4 Pro chip that has 16 GPU cores, so that's like, I think, 24 additional GPU cores. And then compared to the M4 base chip, you get 4 times the GPU cores, so an additional 30 compared to 10, so 40 compared to 10, crazy difference here. And CPU-wise, you get an additional 2 CPU cores compared to the best M4 Pro chip, 4 more compared to the binned M4 Pro chip, and what is it, 6 more compared to the base M4 chips. So quite a bit more performance and RAM here, 48 gigabytes worth. I'm not gonna try to do the mental math in my head. I've retaken this segment too many times. So let's just get to the performance part here. Okay, and interestingly, I had to kind of like rerun this test a few times because I was seeing frames dropping and it didn't make a lot of sense. So like I exited out of the world and then I went back in and I seem to be getting better performance now for whatever reason. So I'm getting in the 40s, sometimes in the 50s, which makes sense, you know, proportionally thinking about how much more GPU performance we have here. Again, I don't know why it was dipping, but you know, maybe you just kind of have to exit out and open it a few times in order to sort of clear a cache or God knows what. But yeah, we're getting like in the mid 40s here, sometimes 50s if you're not really, you know, interacting with a lot of the advanced lighting here. Let me actually change the time to be a little more challenging so we can go to noon. Maybe that will drop the frames again here, 46, 42. I can go down to the water and see what happens. So yeah, it seems like we're getting consistent frames here again. I don't know what the hell was happening a minute ago. But yeah, I mean, we are getting really decent frames here. It's a very playable, you know, 40s, 50s, sometimes 60s, depending on if you're, you know, in the shadows and not interacting with the shaders that much here. This is very playable, once again. So I, you know, would be comfortable playing this. It looks beautiful. I would definitely adjust some settings to optimize frame rate, but yeah, I mean, I can tolerate not 60 FPS if the game looks this great and advanced and all that here. And I'm not even gonna bother switching to, you know what, I lied, I'm gonna do it. I said I wasn't, but I'm gonna do it with all the chips here, so sorry for lying to you earlier. We can see what default Minecraft looks like. 240 FPS, 139 minimum, 96, 60, 111, I mean, it's ridiculous. So again, across the board, you're gonna have zero issue running default Minecraft here, even with a texture pack that doesn't change much. So, you know, buy a base one, you're not gonna, you know, sort of have a better experience necessarily with the higher end one unless you're like really stickler about, you know, frame rate and all that. But let's switch back to the shaders here again, which again, just make it so much cooler, so much more enjoyable and tranquil and almost like modern. Again, 63 FPS, 57 FPS, really decent frames in the overworld here, probably even better on just the laptop's display as well. And also to consider, you know, if you use the laptop's display, you can actually make use of the ProMotion, which I didn't really want to bother demoing here because, again, you can really achieve that with any of the models, and we're strictly just trying to see how the different chips stack up to each other here. And let's finish things off in the nether here in the pitch black. And yeah, we're getting 75 FPS, minimum 43, you know, so above 60 consistently here. Again, you know what, just because we're concluding the test, I'm curious to see if I can actually make the nether a little more navigable and less completely pitch black. I mean, this is better, I raised the brightness, but let me go to the shader settings here. So video settings, shaders, minimum light. Let's turn minimum light on to 2. Okay, so that improved things a little bit here. And we have 94 frames a second. 94, 78 minimum, that's crazy. I'm actually curious to go back to the overworld to see if the frames get a little bit better here. Things are looking brighter again. Oh, we're getting 60 FPS here. So maybe the minimum lighting changed that? I don't know, but again, this seems pretty consistent to the frames we were getting earlier here. So clearly, if you tweak the shader pack to your liking and you use it on your laptop's display or a lower res display or whatever, you can have a really decent experience here. But again, I'm just really impressed with how all 4 of these Mac models did with this pretty CPU and GPU intensive task or game. Once again, Minecraft is simple, but when you introduce shaders, you literally hear the fans kicking on, the Macs get hot, you're using the CPU and GPU cores, which is exactly what we wanted to do and did. So hopefully you can see how the performance stacks up model to model. Once again, please do not buy a MacBook simply to play Minecraft, but if you're buying one, just know if you're going for a beefier model, you're gonna have a better time with the subsequent performance increases, albeit, you know, there comes a limit, you know, and if you're not using shaders, it doesn't matter once again. So yeah, that about wraps up this video here. I hope it was helpful and fun. Lots of you liked the last one, so I'm glad I got to do this one this year. And yeah, again, these are super powerful machines that give you a lot more bang for your buck, specifically the base model one, which I just reviewed. So check out my video on that on my channel. Check out more of my content. Expect more from me coming soon, and check out my link to Icaro to the Break X2 once again. It's a really interesting speaker. And as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.